Hello, minasan! Welcome to another video of Shushoku Café, where we focus on helping you understand jobs that are related to using your Japanese language cultural skills. So, my name is Kasia. I am the founder of Ikigai Connections, and I run the Nihongo Jobs job board for Japanese jobs in the US. And my partner in crime is Takeshi-san. Onegai shimasu.
Hi everybody, this is Takeshi of Quick USA. I work for a Japanese recruiting company and I support all Japan-related communities. So this is a great opportunity for me again to talk about global supply chain management today. Nice meeting you.
All right, so today's special topic is more of a deep dive into the supply chain. Now, we did a video back in July of 2025, kind of with an introduction to the supply chain, logistics, and a general overview of jobs. But today we have a supply chain expert who's also a former Jet and has great Japanese experience. May I introduce, please, Errol Packard? If you could please give us an introduction.
Hi, nice to meet you. My name is Errol. So I realized that this year is actually 30 years since I started studying Japanese. I started my first year of high school. And then I was lucky enough to get to do a year of study abroad when I was 17 in Japan, and then ended up studying Japanese in college. And then I went on the JET program for 3 years. When I returned from JET, I was in the position I think many of you are in, where like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I want to use Japanese for a job, but I don't, I had studied Japanese and linguistics in undergrad, so I didn't have any real skills. I was lucky enough to find a job in Eigyo at a small Japanese company in Minneapolis. And I did that for 3 years, where I really when you do Eigyo, you kind of do everything. But a lot of what we were doing for this semiconductor company was sort of the international shipping back and forth. So our customers were all in America, the factories were in Japan, the R&D centers were in Japan, and I was handling the negotiations and the shipping and all of that with the customers in America. So I kind of learned the basics of logistics and purchasing through that. And then after 3 years, I decided I need to get a little more focused, and I went to go get my master's. So I got an MBA in supply chain. And then in the 15 years since then, I've been doing various aspects of supply chain management. I was home in the US for about 10 years after JET. And then in 2019, me and my family went back to Tokyo, where we were for 5 years. And then I came back to the US just about a year and a half ago. So I've been back and forth from Japan and America for the last 20 years or so. So nice to meet you. Happy to talk about my experience and however I can help the folks listening in today.
All right, that's great. I have so many questions. Like I love our candidate has so many questions. So can I go one by one the questions? For the first
Please.
one, so many candidate is asking it. So what exactly is supply chain management? Is it logistic or it's not logistic? What the difference is between them? It's very confusing sometimes. So if you okay, can you explain a little bit?
Yeah, I think it's different at every company. But basically, it's from the point of when a product, whatever that product is made, to getting it to the customer. But between that, there's a lot of things in between. Like, how do you plan for it? How do you purchase it? How do you then track the logistics from the factory to the customer's warehouse, or maybe it's the end customer, somebody's doorstep, right? All of that could be supply chain management. In my career, I've kind of seen 3 main categories, which is, one is planning. Which is where sort of you take sales forecasts, work with account managers to understand how much stuff do we have to make, and translate that into a manufacturing or a shipping plan. So that's planning. Next is procurement, which is actually buying the stuff, and in some cases negotiating contracts to buy the stuff from suppliers. And then the third would be the actual logistics. So just tracking things from the factory to the warehouse to another warehouse to the customer. All that in between. Like the main 3 areas that I've seen are those: the planning, the procurement, and the logistics. Of course, within that, there's other things. There's like process management, there's like analytics, but I see it as coming down to those 3 core functions.
Yeah, that's great information, because when they confuse, it's like this or this. It's not like a big umbrella in there, just supply chain management. Under there, of course, it's going to be related with the logistic and as you said, purchasing, procurement, and a very key important thing. Sometimes there's a little bit candidate who wants to like a data analytics side, like a focus, demand focus, something like that. That is also part of supply chain management as well. So it's very broad, wide opportunity in there. That is what is supply chain management. And I think if my understanding correct or not, I want to double check it, because most of Japanese company, as you mentioned, like it's importing, exporting their product. So like handling, like coordinating, like a supply chain management, it's kind of a heart of their businesses. It's not only for sales, it's not only for logistics. That's kind of main important thing, how you could be efficient in there, how you could be competitive in there, how you can manage in there is kind of key for their businesses. So if you want to be connected to Japanese company, like doing like supply chain management is like you have tons of opportunity, not only automotive, not only for one consumer goods company, not only for manufacturing, semiconductor, any industry is there, the demand in there. That's my understanding. But I want to, from your point of view, how do you see?
In my experience is that 10 years ago, most Japanese companies did not have supply chain departments.
Okay.
The kind of the supply chain functions were done out of like the Sogo department or like the finance department or like other departments were doing supply chain. I think it's really in only the last 5 to 10 years that I've been seeing Japanese companies in particular having their own supply chain departments with like focused supply chain functions. In 2019 or 2018, I was looking for a lot of jobs in Japan. And at that time, like that's what I was told by recruiters, that, because I had some supply chain experience, that's a very good thing, because in Japan, people had it from some on the job, but typically there weren't people who were like subject supply chain experts. But I think that's changing a lot now.
Okay, that's good to know. And my next question is: so if somebody is now start having interest about global supply chain, next question is, as it's very broad, wide, where do I start? If I want to be there, like you mentioned, you started as a eigyo, as a sales, but from that experiences was also going to be good experience for that. So can you give us some idea from where people can start creating their career to be a supply chain specialist?
Yeah, I mean, I think that when you first come back from Japan, we're kind of in the young stages of your career, just getting your foot in the door in any kind of job at a company that's strong in supply chain is a good idea. But I think that, whether it's training or certification or going for like a degree, I think can really help, because, jumping into a supply chain job without that experience, I think can be very challenging. Not so much because the work is hard, but I think that most companies want that kind of experience before someone's starting out. And so typically I would say either a certification or like doing a 1 or 2 year program will really help to like get your foot in the door. I did a master's. To be honest, did I learn that much about supply chain? I don't think I did. I learned a lot about like how to do Excel, which is going to help whether in finance, marketing, supply chain, whatever. I think it's those basic kind of business skills that can be, used in supply chain. But just having those credentials, I think a lot of the time can really help when you're trying to interview for something.
Do you have any example of the credentials, or what kind of like a courses is recommended, like some university, or is there any like a global knowledge? Like
most universities have both bachelor's and master's programs in it. I think if that's the thing you want to do, it can be very valuable. And most places have career offices where they try to get you interviews with supply chain focused companies. Other than that, certification programs like CPSM, like PI, like even PMP, things like that are very valuable for getting basic experience.
Okay, that's good, because actually I just starting to be like advisory for the University of Dallas College in here in Dallas, and then they have courses, online courses that you can run for the supply chain management or import export specialist, something like that. So little by little, you can taking the courses to understand like on the general idea about it, and then go for there. Might be good for having those credentials, I think. especially these days, entry level is getting tough to start
Right.
their career if you don't have experience, because there's a lot of competitive in there. So having those specific special credential, it stand out a lot as well. So yeah, I think you're right, having the credential. Or if you start your career not specifically a supply chain management position title, it's not like that, but working in a logistic company or working in a manufacturing company, like on the sales assistant, it's also
That's right.
because they coordinate a lot of a logistic side as well, and they know how to calculate, prepare those documents, like a forecast document, a monthly report things as well. So
Yeah.
that may be kind of a things as well, starting in sales assistant, it's not too far to achieve in there or something like that.
And that's exactly what I did. When I started at Canon in 2008, my title, like A-Gil, right? But I was a sales assistant. But I was doing a little bit of everything. And I think especially at Japanese companies, these entry-level positions, you are often doing a little bit of everything. And that's how you get that generalized experience. What I've felt is that in the early days of doing supply chain, it's the same kind of skill set that you would have in any kind of office job, right?
Okay.
It's just coordination, communication, collaboration. Like the actual deep skills don't come until later. And so I think you should just get in the door where you can at a company where you feel like is strong, and then just kind of build that resume.
Yeah, that's great. Start something in a general thing you can use it like a sales assistant, and then meanwhile start studying online courses at the same time to get the credential, and then moving in there little by little, maybe like a smooth way to get into there, right? Okay. I have so many questions, but maybe we're gonna have a limited time. So, do you have any advice? I already asked you how to be, but if somebody don't have any background about supply chain, if you're gonna give them some tips, what would you say for them?
I would say, find out ways to study. If you're at a company and you're not doing that as your job, start to network with people who are doing it as their job. Spend time with them, whether it's part of your work or not part of your work. I think, if you have time to understand functions outside of your own, that's always a plus. So even if you're doing, finance or marketing or sales assistant, find out the people who are doing supply chain at your company and start to spend time with them. Try to understand where your job intersects with them. I think the broader you have an understanding of the end-to-end processes at your company, then people are going to see that. And they're going to see that your understanding is there, so that when you want to make a jump or apply for an open position, then you can speak more intelligently about it.
That's a great idea. Before you deciding to, if you're really 100% into it or something like that, first of all, observe the others who is doing in there and then get the idea. That's great. Kasia, I think you are also had the experience working on a manufacturer, the Japanese manufacturer in Michigan as well.
Yes.
So I think some of your experience was related to the supply chain, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I've worked in a couple different places. Oh, I'm sorry, this was for Kasia. Please go ahead.
Nope, I was going to weave it into yours as well too, but I think from what I saw in the automotive industry, even though I wasn't involved in any kind of logistics related role, I could see how important that coordination was, which was one of the key words that you said, Errol. And I also was helping out in Poland in the supply, the procurement department, to see how parts could get shipped and brought in. So as you were talking, it was just like, my idea was, if somebody has an analytical mind, if they like spreadsheets, if they like tracking things, especially now where everything is being delivered, Amazon 1-day delivery, but you still have to think about how things are physically moved. Those kinds of skill sets of maybe being organized, liking the attention to detail, I think is also important. Is that something that you would also agree with, and maybe have any other characteristics to add onto that?
Yeah, absolutely. All of that. And I think it's the ability to be able to think into the future, but also think about what's happening right now. And I think with supply chain, you always have to be thinking a few steps ahead, and someone who enjoys kind of thinking out long range, but also then bringing it back to, okay, what am I doing today? What am I doing tomorrow? That combination is really important.
Nice. Oh my goodness. Well, like Takeshi-san said, we could ask so many questions, but we will leave the video up at this point and say Eroru-san, arigatou gozaimashita. Your advice is so helpful. And I think a lot of people, especially if they're entry level or maybe they're changing careers, they see these, job titles or they hear the phrase, supply chain industry, and they just don't know what that means. So hearing from an expert like yourself, I think is very helpful. So before we wrap up, though, I may ask one quick question. If you could tie in a little bit about your Japan experience with supply chain, whether in Japan or in the US, is there anything you'd like to add about that?
Yeah, just, I think for those of us who have spent time in Japan, understand how difficult communication can be sometimes. And I think that sort of the patience that goes along with working across cultures, that translates within a company too, right? It's like you are trying to work with, when you're in supply chain, you're kind of at the heart of the company. You're dealing with, finance, engineering, all kinds of other departments. Sometimes those departments speak different languages in a way. And so I think the ability to sort of work with people from different backgrounds and kind of translate from department to department and country to country, people who have lived and worked in Japan understand that at a basic level. So I think that translator capability really goes between jobs. So I would hold on to that. That's my advice for people.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much, Errol. We're so excited that you were able to join us. And for everybody who's watching, we hope that this gave you some kind of, ideas into maybe dig a little deeper into the topic of supply chain jobs. And if you're curious, you can just read some job descriptions that are out there. Of course, I will mention my job board, nihongojobs.com, for that. But you can learn so much about what each of these roles is about, and then just dig a little deeper and maybe have, informational interviews with people who are in that field. It's really, really wide. There's so much in it that's that you can do depending on your personality, your skill set, and the companies that are either near you or places that you'd like to move to. So just be curious and good luck. And we hope that this video was very helpful to you. So thanks again for joining another video of the Shushoku Café series. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.